Hey, what's up, comrades? We're here today to talk about Kiki's Delivery Service, not the Studio Ghibli film, but the book it's based on. I don't know if it's a light novel. It's pretty short. It's like a kid's book. Anyway, it popped up on my audiobook thingies, my pile of audiobooks I have on my drive. So I was like, fuck it, let's do that. After doing 8 volumes of solo leveling, it's nice to just get like a nice cozy fantasy thing going on. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and here we go. So Kiki is a witch, and she's the daughter of a witch. And if you've seen the Studio Ghibli movie, which most people have probably interacted with that versus the book, there is not like a huge bunch of differences. Like the movie is a more succinct, like straightforward kind of story that builds from 3 arcs and all that good stuff. Well, the book is more of like a series of tales that occur over a year for Kiki, from the time she's like at home being kind of bum-ish and not really caring about being a witch or taking responsibility, to the end where she is like super happy to have like responsibility and to have started a new life away from home while still kind of enjoying the time she gets to spend with her parents. So it's like a coming of age story about a young girl who just happens to be a witch, and the witching stuff is very minimal in this. So the whole deal is that being a witch is genetic, and so these women, they get married and they have kids, and if they have a daughter, which seems like that's usually what happens, then the daughter inherits some of their magical capabilities. But over the years, with like the increase of technology and stuff, essentially people have just stopped relying on the witchcraft, and the witches have stopped practicing as much, and so there's stuff that's getting lost. So for example, Kiki's grandmother had all sorts of like witchy capabilities, but then her mother can only fly on a broom and create like medication, like sneeze medication and such. And the Kiki had like no interest in learning how to make like medication or potions and stuff, but the flying was cool, so she learned how to fly. So that's pretty much her only ability, is the ability to fly. So the witches come to age at the age of 10, and when they come of age at the age of 10, they take a journey for a year away from their family to like establish themselves somewhere, learn about themselves. It's kind of like the Amish thing, only their goal is for them to leave and not return. It's for them to go and establish themselves when they return after a year. Oh, the other thing about witches, they all have cats, and these are talking cats, but they're talking cats in the way that they can talk to other talking cats and creatures, and they can talk to their witches, but they can't talk to anybody else. So anyone else who's looking at Kiki while she's talking to her cat, Gigi, will just see a girl talking to a cat and the cat meowing back, for example. All right. So Kiki's just bumming around. Her mom's kind of upset that she's not taking life seriously or whatever, and that she's about to come of age and that she needs to figure her shit out. And then Kiki's just kind of chilling, and she's like, you know what? I do need to figure my shit out. I'm going to go. And so she makes like a broom for herself, but then her mom's like, oh, that's a nice broom, but I want you to take my broom. My broom's much nicer, and it'll be easier for you to fly. And Kiki kind of gets upset about it or whatever, but then she's like, all right, fine. So she takes it, she starts flying, and she's just kind of meandering about. She's like, I want to be close to the ocean, so I'm going to fly to the coast. So she's flying to the coast, and then she runs into another witch. And this girl is kind of at the end of her year-long thing, and her witching powers, besides flying, are the ability to like read the future. But then as they're like flying around talking about stuff, she talks about how like witches kind of get, you got to apply your trade, and your trade is kind of like whatever the fuck you need to be doing. So she mentions going to like the rancher to like help with the cows or something. Anyway, so they have a nice chat, and then Kiki keeps on her way, and she eventually gets to this town, and she lands, and everyone's like, what the fuck is this? And she's like, I'm a witch, I'm here to help. And everyone's like, whatever, I don't care. And so she kind of she just wanders around and is like, oh man, I don't know what's going on. And eventually she hears this lady arguing with her husband about some what do you call it in English? It's somebody who comes into your store and buys things. The purchaser. Anyway, somebody came to their bakery to buy bread, and then they left but they left the pacifier for their baby, and it's going to be awful because the baby loves its pacifier, and it's going to just be crying and crying. And this baker lady is like super pregnant, and her husband's like, oh, whatever, it'll be fine. And then Kiki overhears, and she's like, I can take the pacifier to her. And she's like, oh, sweetie, it's like across town or whatever. And she's like, oh, it's fine, I'll fly. And so she flies and gives the baby the pacifier, and the woman is so grateful. And then she comes back, and the baker lady's like, hey, where are you staying? And she's like, I don't know. She's like, we have an old like side house. You can stay there for free, and you can, do deliveries, and it's gonna be great having you around. I love it. And so they're like, yeah, cool. And so she starts working out of there, and she decides, because she can fly in her broom, that she can be like a delivery person. And then she starts just kind of like advertising herself and going around, and then the baker lady like kind of puts the word out. So she starts kind of very slowly building her Kiki's delivery service, obviously. And so one of the first clients she has is the seamstress, and the seamstress has a toy she needs delivered to her nephew who's super spoiled, and he needs it right meow. Anyway, so it's what the present is. It's a stuffed black cat that looks just like Gigi, and it's in like a golden toy cage or whatever. It's like a toy. And so Kiki's like, cool, got it. So she's flying, and then Gigi's been a real asshole because he keeps trying to play with the cat in the cage, like the stuffed animal, and Kiki keeps being like, stop it. And then eventually Gigi like hits it, and then Kiki like spins around, and the toy falls into the earth, or falls out of the cage, and she goes, she can't find it, so she's got to get Gigi to pretend to be the stuffed animal, while she goes back and like searches for this thing. So Gigi has to like use its like magic cat powers to like be completely still while this little kid like plays with it and does all that crazy stuff. And then Kiki heads back to the woods, and while she's there, she finds like an old painter's cabin. And when I say old, it's like the house is old, but it's like a young woman who's painting, and she's like really wants to paint the deepest of all blacks, which is like witch black. And so they make a trade. So Kiki's gonna get the stuffed animal that the painter found because it looked black, right? That was like the whole motivation. And in return, she's going to come back with her cat, and then this lady's going to be able to paint her and Gigi. And so they make the trade. She takes the stuffy, goes back, trades it out with Gigi, and Gigi and her fly back to get the painting. Now, this story is kind of integrated in like the Kiki's Delivery Service movie. The next story is not so much. So it's like later on, it's hot, it's summer. She's reading a letter from her mom, and then at this point, the baker lady has already given birth, and she suggests that like, hey, Kiki's like, where's everybody? And lady's like, oh, it's like summer here in Italy, so everyone goes to the beach or like hides out, so no one's gonna really be doing deliveries, so you should go down to the beach. And Kiki's like, oh, what can I do? And then the lady's like, well, I got a black swimsuit you can borrow. And so she does, and she flies down there, and her and Gigi are kind of hesitant to go in the water, but then Gigi goes out with like one of these kids like this, and Kiki starts talking to the mom, and they're just like chit-chatting, and then there's a big storm that comes out of nowhere, and it's not totally out of nowhere. Like Kiki kind of mentions like, it seems kind of odd, the weather, but then Kiki flies out and saves the boy and Gigi, what's going on? Yeah, she goes and saves them, but there's like an issue because someone took her broom, and so she's using some wanky broom that's not really set up to do magic, so it's real tough. And then she remembers that there was this kid who was like pesting her, who was like eyeballing her at some point, and he had a broom. So she goes and tracks him down, and it's this guy, and he's like dressed like a witch. He's got like nerdy glasses, and he's trying to fly with the broom, and he falls and like breaks the broom. And she runs up and she's like, oh my gosh, you stole my broom, you asshole. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm a member of like the science club, and we're all trying to find a way to fly. And like there's like 3 sections, and one section is trying to find like, he's using like boots, and then one's using like carpets, and then I was trying to find, I'm part of the witch's broom. And so he's really sorry about the whole broken broom thing. And Kiki's like, oh no, what am I going to do? And so what she ends up doing is and this is like the boy from the show. I can't remember exactly what his name is. He doesn't play as prominent a role in the book as he does in the show. In the show, he's like kind of around a bunch. And they don't meet this way either, from what I recall. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, like a couple of years. But there he is. It's that guy. If you've seen the movie, you can imagine. Anyway, so she combines like the broken parts of her mom's broom with like, and tries to create a new broom, and it works, but it's not as like fun as it was before. Like it's harder to hold and to maintain and all this stuff, but she's still getting the job done, and her business continues to grow. One day she gets a call from the artist lady who wants Kiki to deliver the painting to the museum of like the blackest witch blacks, and so they have to come up with a way to get the painting there because it's big and Kiki can't hold it on the broom. There's no way, so they come up with this idea of like using balloons to like hold the painting up in the air, and then she flies in the back, and that ends up working. And the boy helps her out with that, so that's nice. And then once the painting's at the museum, she gains even more notoriety, and her business grows even more and more. The next job, there's like this woman, and I remember I vaguely remember this being a part of the in the movie as well. But this old lady who makes like oh no, hold on, that's not right yet. Okay, so the next story is she needs to deliver some stuff for this handy lady, and this handy lady is like a handyman, right? She just like goes and fixes things and does laundry and has like 15 different like hustles essentially that she's working with. And so Kiki helps her like dry some laundry by flying it around, and then she needs to deliver something for this lady to like her asshole of a sister who's like a real asshole. Anyway, so she does that, does the laundry business. Next up, she gets asked by a girl her age who's like, hey, can you deliver this item? I think it was a pen. No, a pin. It's a pin, like a pin you can put on. And a poem. And so Kiki's like very curious because this is like a girl around her age. She's talking about boys, and Kiki's 10, so of course she's interested in boys now, I guess. I feel like that's more like 12, 13, 14, but whatever. Maybe in Japan it's 10. But she's so curious about the poem that she pulls over at some point before delivering the items and like reads through the poem, and so does Gigi, and she's like, I don't understand what this stuff is. But she loses the poem at that point, and she's like, ruh-roh. But Gigi remembers it, so then they're able to go give the pen to the boy, and then write the poem down on like a leaf, and then they deliver that too, and the boy loves it. And then later on, the girl whose name is Mimi, don't worry, that never comes up again, and Kiki talk about how they both think the other person's so mature. Like Mimi thinks Kiki's so mature because she's got like a job and responsibility and she's living on her own, and then Kiki thinks Mimi's so mature because she's talking to boys and has like these plans. Like she plays like she like gave a present to the boy, but then like kind of playing hard to get at the same time to like pique his interest, and they have this whole conversation about that, and it's pretty poesh because again, it's just like, what's it like to be a young girl who's growing up in the world and coming of age? Like this is what it's like. Then it's good stuff. So then the next story is this woman hires Kiki to deliver like a belly scarf to her son, who's like a captain out at sea. And they have a whole conversation, and she makes a belly scarf for Kiki, and like she has belly scarves around like all her stuff. And a belly scarf is just like a big wool like scarf looking thing that goes around your belly like a belt, but it's to keep you warm. Anyway, so she flies and she finds the boat captain, and she's like, hey, your mom wanted me to bring you this belly scarf. And then he's like, oh, I don't need a belly scarf. And plus it's like way too big. And then Kiki's like, yeah, this is huge. I don't know how it'd possibly fit around you. And then he shows that he's already wearing a belly scarf. And then she's like, what about your guys, the shipmates? And he's like, yeah, they got belly scarves too. And they all show. And they're like trying to deliver wine, but it's like the seas are pretty rough. And then the big belly scarf, they end up putting it around like the smokestack. And then they're trying to figure out what to do. They're like, well, hey, you're like a witch. Can you help us like... Oh, no. So she's like, all right, cool. And then one of the guys is like, oh, you're the delivery witch, right? And they're like, yeah. It's like, can you help us deliver this wine? And the captain's like, how the fuck is she supposed to help us deliver all this fucking wine? Like her tiny little burb. And she's like, wait, I have an idea. All of you take your belly scarves off. And so they take all the belly scarves off and they wrap them around like the wines. And then that makes them so they don't jostling around like they're going to break because they're at sea and they're like being tossed about. And so they do that, and they get there, and the people love it. They love the wine, and they love the cute little belly scarves around all the wine. And so like really improves business like a lot, and everyone's like super excited about that. Next story is that at New Year, it's New Year's Day, or it's New Year's Eve almost. No, it's New Year's Eve, and it's almost New Year's Day. And that the baker lady informs Kiki that there's a tradition in town that when the clock strikes midnight, everybody goes for a run through like around the whole town. And she's like, that's awesome. And then we kind of switch over to the mayor, and the mayor is like looking at the clock, and he's like, fuck, it's broken. And then so he calls the clock repair guy, and he's like, yeah, no problem, I'll fix this in a jiffy. And so he goes to sorry, the police are like pushing everybody over one of the sides of the road. So he goes to, oh, they got a wreck, nice. So he goes, the clock guy's like, yeah, no problem, we got to fix this in a jiffy. And he goes to pull out like a gear, then he needs to fix it. He's like, right, I don't have one, it's gone. Oh no, we need to order another one. And the mayor's like, okay, so go order it. And he's like, man, it's not going to be here for like 3 weeks. And he's like, no, we need it tonight. Oh, what are we going to do? And they're like, what about the next town over? They might have one. He's like, oh, that's a good idea. So then they call Kiki, and they're like, hey, go steal this this gear from the clock town over. And she's like, you want me to steal? And he's like, yeah, just for like the night, and then we'll like return it. And so Kiki's like, oh, okay. So then she goes, and she sees that this other town also has a tradition where they like snap their fingers at midnight or some bullshit. And she's like, oh no, I can't steal their thing. because then they'll all have their clock. What are we going to do? And so she's flying back, and she's thinking and talking, and she's like, I know what I'm going to do. And so she goes up to the clock tower, and right before like midnight, she like flies into the hand really fast so that it hits, it like moves, and then hits midnight, and then it sets off like the bells, and everyone starts running. And then she's like, phew, and then she flies down to where the baker's at, and they all run together, making it work. And then later on, she learns that the clockmaker went around telling everybody in town that she saved the New Year's tradition, and that makes her even more famous and more connected to the town or whatever. The next up, there's and that story was not in the movie at all, and neither is the next one, where it's these musicians get called into come into town to perform something to like welcome spring or whatever. And what happens is Kiki gets called down to the train station, and the musicians, the porters for the train station in town, did not get their instruments off, and the train's like an express train, so it's not gonna like stop at the next station where Kiki can just fly over and grab them. It's like going full speed, like across the country or something. So they're like, can you go get them? And she's like, from a moving train? And they're like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, I guess so. Fuck. And so she flies and finds this train, and then it's like a harrowing experience where she like gets on the train and is holding on, and Gigi's got to go through like a window to unlock the back door so they can get inside the luggage compartment and all this stuff. And then Kiki's like losing her grip on the train, is like, oh no, I'm gonna fall. And then at the last minute, or last second, Gigi like opens the back door and she slides on in, and they're like, all right, now what? And she's like, I can't carry all these like luggages, but maybe if we take the instruments out of the luggage, then we can like use string, and like they can like float behind me while I fly. And so they get that working, because to be honest, most instruments aren't that heavy, so like whatever. So the string instruments, her and like the cello, there's a cello and a violin that her and Gigi carry while she flies, and then all the brass instruments they tie to these strings, and then they're just like floating behind. And as they start flying, they start playing, and they're like boom, 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 because they're just like going through them and stuff. It's not really how that works, but whatever. And so that's fun. So then they're flying in, and then all the people are like getting upset because like, where the fuck is this concert? And the musicians are going out, and they're like, all right, everybody, we're about to start this concert, but first let's pray to Pele for good volcanic spring weather or whatever. And everyone's like, oh, okay, yeah. And so they start doing that, and then all of a sudden they start hearing music, and then they see Kiki like flying in with all the instruments, and they're like boom, 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 and everyone's like cheering and happy, and this is like, oh, this is fucking awesome, this is great. And then she lands, and the musicians get all their instruments out, and then when they come out, everyone's leaving. And like, where are you going? And like, that was a great concert. We're excited to see you guys again next year when you welcome spring. And the musicians are very like, oh. Good stuff. And then Kiki and Gigi like are walking away like, God, that was so much fun. They're like, are we not going to get paid? Like, fuck it, that was great. So then the story kind of wraps up at that point. So, we had like 5 stories or so. 5 or 6. And so the final story is just Kiki sitting around being kind of bored, and she's like, oh man, it's almost been a year, I should go back and visit my family. And so they do. They fly all the way back to their home, and the mom's super excited, and the dad teases the mom about missing Kiki and like going to like her special spot in the mountains where she'd go like lounge and not do work, and how much they miss each other, and they like drink tea and hang out. And then Kiki like comes to the determination that she's like, I like being home with my family, but I miss like my job, and I miss the new friends I made and like the community, and so I'm gonna leave early. I was gonna stay for like a month or something, but I'm only gonna stay for like a week. And this demonstrates that she's grown to appreciate life and hard work, and to kind of grow into her own and come of age, which is the whole point of the story. And that's Kiki's Delivery Service. It's pretty good. Definitely something I would like. I would consider like buying and having my daughter read, because it's like a cute story, and it's really like a coming of age, and it's just like quaint and very nice, and I enjoyed it. Now as like an adult man, am I getting much out of this? Nah, not really. I mean, it's like an interesting insight, and like I got a daughter, so it's like thought-provoking in that regard. I got some nieces that are like coming of age, if you will. They're a little older than 10, but one of them's like 10. But it's just like, sometimes I feel like it's good just to get insight into how other people function in reality, because this is like a book about like a girl coming of age, written by like a Japanese woman who's got like young daughters, and so she wrote it for like them, right? And she has a whole like intro about it. So yeah, so it's good. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later.